But the problem is that there's a joker in the pack. There's a joker in the pack. So these models, even though they appear to be doing exactly what I've just said, they're unreliable. They're not trustworthy. We don't understand how they work. They don't provide their thinking or reasoning. And there are some clear cognitive capacities they clearly don't still have, like, for example,
So is this just
planning.
AI? Yeah.
And then, I mean, there's been calls, actually, Melanie Mitchell spoke about this in her recent piece, to have a Manhattan project of intense research on AI's abilities, limitations, trustworthiness, and interpretability, where the investigation and results are open to anyone. What do you think about that?
Was that supposed to be sort of like transparency, she's saying?
Well, you know, a prodigious effort to understand what it is that these models are actually doing. Because the thing is, if we have an over-reliance on these models, society impacts to one side. We're now living in a world where we lose all intelligible frameworks of understanding what the fuck these things do.
Yeah.
And is that a problem?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand how you think.
No, that's true.
So why are you more reliable?
Well, because I don't. Yeah, I suppose that's not quite a straight analogy, is it? Because even at my greatest capacity, I'm very unlikely to have influence over you in your day-to-day life, whereas AI will. AI is far bigger than any mind, isn't it?
Yes,
it's almost like a meta mind. It's like it's much bigger. And what I'm trying to say is, no individual mind is going to likely to control you unless you're in a sort of like dictatorship. But that's luckily it would probably not going to be there for a while.
I think the problem is the pernicious enmeshment of this technology in society. Right, it's ensconced in our society, or will be, and that leads to this erosion of autonomy. And when so many things you do day in, day out are controlled by this infosphere, and this is something which is deliberately abstract. We call it the infosphere, but you don't understand how it works. No one does. And it just chips away until in 10 years' time, you don't have any control over what you're doing. Yeah, and society
it's the slow boiling frog, isn't it?
It's the slow boiling frog.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and I do think it's important that to be that detached. Well, a large number of people are that detached from the even the basic understanding of the things that are now dominating their world. So the only two groups that are going to be interested in this are those who can understand it and create it. And that's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Even they don't understand it.
Well, okay. Can talk about it intelligibly.
Yeah.
To some degree. They can talk about it. They can theorize new ways, come up with new ways of doing stuff that might have a different result. Because obviously there has been a progression in AI. It's not stayed static, is it? And you can't always understand where you're going to go with it, but you can push it somewhere else and find out what happens, you know. The majority of people won't have the capacity to go beyond a certain line. And everyone's going to have a line somewhere in it, you know? But as it becomes so specialised, it feels like the two groups of people that are going to be running the world or dictating this, going to be controlling or describing or creating that enmeshment, as you are going to be those who technologically can create it, play around with it, and discover new possibilities within the technology, and those who can use it effectively to control. Yes, you've got the technical and the political sphere, and I think the politicians or the political sphere, the bureaucrats, are sort of who are really good and with the desire to. Let's be honest. The problem with bureaucrats and people who are high up in politics, they always want to control more. That's what makes them more relevant. That's what gives their life more power and more potentially more eudaimonia, more self-actualization. I'm really good at telling other people what to do. Yes. That's my thing. You know, I can't possibly be happy unless I'm telling everybody else how to live their life.
But cynically, what better way to enslave people than to truncate both their understanding and their agency?
Okay.
So we're bringing up a new society of people. Like, no one knows how to use maps anymore, but that didn't really matter very much, but now no one's going to know how to think anymore.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Tim. Yeah, it was okay when cartography died. It wasn't okay when humanity died.
Yeah, exactly. So one was a form of emancipation, one was a form of oppression. So it's now becoming so enmeshed. And the problem is the way the infosphere works is that there's no way to live off the grid, because even now, if you're a journalist, if you're not using large language models, you are going to fail as a journalist. because you're competing against people
That's it.
who are using large language models.
Not only does our concepts change, not only does the function of the world change, the marketplace changes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not, and you could be the clever guy, the funny guy, the good artist of your community, and then of your village, and then of your town or your state or county. 60, 70 years ago, and people would know you. Oh, he's the guy who can draw really, really well. But now when we go to social media, it's against the world.
Yes.
And now against machines.
Yes. But also there's this pernicious virtualization and abstraction of everything. So with generative art, you can now produce an abstract image, which is a confabulation of the work of thousands of artists. And when I produce this YouTube video and we put it online, it will in the future be aggregated, remixed, and confabulated into an infinitude of streams of other content. And you see how it's not only my agency and understanding, it's also my personal identity as being diffused in ways that no one can currently understand.
Which is, and potentially that's not a problem.
Well, it feels like it is a problem.
Oh no, that's what I'm trying to say is that I think it is.
Yeah,
there's an argument because potentially it's not.
Well, I think that this is a problem. I think what's not a problem is this fictional, recursive, self-improving intelligence. I think the real problem is the re-ontologization of our society and the increasing abstraction. So already information is the best way to understand the functioning of our society.
Yeah.
But when you have information on top of information on top of information, it becomes so abstract and divorced from any intelligible understanding, it just becomes completely impossible for us to do anything.
And it's so funny. Take the first, what was the word he used? Speculative danger. The first one was about misinformation.
Yes.
Now, to me, the term misinformation is bizarre. Because it implies, because let's be honest, it's only ever used in the field of politics and society. I mean, you got what I'm saying. It's not really misinformation when it's in a small little philosophical subject or a technical subject. It's not misinformation.
Yes.
It might be mistaken, and then you get corrected. But misinformation is nearly always talking about making a large collection of people believe a certain thing.
Well, yes, and we can distinguish misinformation from disinformation. So the malicious intent is important as well.
But still, either.
Yes.
Either, from what I'm talking about, is a strange thing because it implies, or what it keeps implying to people, is there is a table contents of information. There's a place where you can get your information from.
Yes.
That's not mis or dis.
Yes.
And of course, that again helps centralized control, which is funny how he it's a constant reference and encouraging individuals to believe there is a central hub of information they can go to, which is correct.
Okay, but what about the industrialization of misinformation? Because I often make the point that even now, the world is full of misinformation.
Absolutely.
I mean,
will be.
Go and have a chat with Bob down the pub.
Yeah, well, Lucas.
What's he going to tell you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting, but do you not think that's a natural, it's like what you have to accept. If you want any kind of freedom of thought, you have to accept that people can spread misinformation and disinformation.
Right, but I would say the real threat is not the misinformation per se. It's the effect on our cognitive apparatus, because increasingly we don't need to do any work at all, right? Richard Dawkins always said that, when you bring children up, they should have an inquiring mind and a healthy degree of skepticism. Yes. And increasingly, we are just going to become passive observers of information. We won't be directly involved in discriminating information.
Yeah, and then redefining it, making it more precise,
That's right. I mean, when you
an enjoyable process. Yeah.
When I plan a tube journey into London and I use Google Maps, I'm not interrogating it.
No.
I'm not saying, "Oh fuck,
I'm going via Shaftesbury Avenue, my friend."
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe they didn't realise that so and so station's got building works for the next 2 years. You're completely detached from it, and you're similarly going to be detached from absolutely every form of information, and that's dangerous.
Okay, so how could that be prevented?
Well, in lieu of understanding it, so the two things that are being eroded are agency and understanding, and in lieu of either, you have this effect on society because it means we become a society of automatons.
Okay, then is there anything you think we could do to prevent it that wouldn't be worse than the outcome?
Well, the extreme version of this is paternalism and
which I think
Ludditism,
which is worse than the outcome, probably. It's not about.
Well, it's not a certainty.
It's not about preventing the AI as much as is the precedent that you'd be setting of what you can dictate to individuals and society. No, Tim, you can't do that anymore.
Well, the problem is the technology has become so democratized that anyone at home in their bedroom with a powerful machine can start to build this technology. So you would have to basically say to people that no, you can't use your computer anymore.
Right.
And also you would let China and all of these other countries, so it's
very similar actually. Yeah, it's very similar to just trying to do all our best to have a net zero policy in this country by 2030 or 2050. It'll probably be changed to by 2030. And then that will reduce it by 1%. But we just offset all of our carbon footprint to other countries.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop.
Yeah.
So like you said, theoretically, all it's doing is putting us at a major disadvantage.
Yeah.
And people hate hearing that because it's been turned into a religion.
Exactly.
So an either or binary, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah.
So either or binary. You either are a climate extremist or you're a climate denier. Yes. Or alarmist or a denier. There is no, like you said, there's no subtle, there's no 0.72. Everything's 1 or 0. But what I'm getting at, go back to the misinformation thing so what I'm saying, you're saying that Luddite approach wouldn't work anyway because it's so democratized, so ingrained into all the elements and meshed into our day-to-day life.
It could only be enforced with violence.
Right. Okay. So it would be. So we would only be inviting fascism then.
Yes.
So therefore, we can say that isn't a superior outcome to the explosion risk of the AI.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like what are we concerned about with the explosion of AI? That we'll lose our autonomy, that we'll lose our reason, purpose, and our freedom. Well, we're definitely going to lose it if we go for the Luddite way.
Well, the people who advocate for the explosion, they are called doomers, and they think one step further. I mean, many of them accept that there'll be these societal near-term risks, but they think within 10, 50 years there's an existential threat. So the AI will basically seek to kill all of us, and
so
that's science fiction.
So the question is, can a machine seek to do anything in that respect?
They think so. I mean, this is getting into, can a machine have intentionality? Will it seek to deceive us? Will it seek to preserve itself?
What I'm saying is, couldn't taking over humanity, as it were, in that way, the existential threat, could that as a intention be derived through pure computation?
They think so.
Yeah,
they think so.
So what would be the virtue or the value to which it was aiming for? What I'm saying, what would be the differentiation between taking over and not taking over? How would the machine, the AI, discern one as superior, and on what basis?
Well, that's the problem. So they say if you have a 10x intelligence, we can't understand it, so we can't understand what it thinks or why it thinks.
Yeah, okay.
And
maybe we just know when we're in handcuffs.
Well, yeah, exactly. And by the time we're in handcuffs, it's too late.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is just based on this kind of fanciful.
So it's the straight Pandora's box thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's Pandora's box.